Welcome to Health, Wellbeing and Lifestyle, where professionals in their field educate, inform and inspire the community to have healthier and more balanced lifestyles and also live the life they want. Our first guest for today is youth educator Marilou Coombe, who will be talking to us about supporting our children in challenging times. Welcome, Marilou.
Hi, thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
So I think first of all, I just want to ask, what is it that children want?
Where do we even start with that question? What do children want? I feel like everybody, whole humanity, what we really want is to belong, to be seen, to be heard, to fit in mainly. But that really trickles down to children even more. Especially if we look at teenagers in particular, what they really, really want is to belong, to fit in, to know that they've got their tribe, their friendships. You know, most people, whether it's the educators, whether it's the parents, you know, in society we think kids, oh yeah, we must give them this, we must give them this, we must give them that. But if you actually zoom out and have a look, their friendships is the most important thing to them. And also we must remember that it just depends on their age, it depends on their background as well, depending like whether it's culture, you know, where they live, and also whether, you know, their gender, like if they are female, male, like the brain construct there and their needs is very different as well, that we must take into consideration. So another challenge that our children are also having is that we don't have the structure of the family and the events and the things that we used to do growing up, yeah? So giving them more options, inviting them to be more active in their community. When I was younger, like we used to do a lot of community events, like be involved in community events or a lot of going to visit family and friends and so on. I just don't think that occurs for a lot of these kids today either. So they don't have that extra connection hub that they can go to the way that we used to. So they rely more on that online stuff. And then what happens in that as well, the challenge is, like I was saying before, with the dopamine hit that they get, being online anymore, anything else feels really boring. And it's like, why would they go outside to make the effort to do this event when they can just sit in their room, not be bothered, or play and talk to their friends that way? And another thing as well, what I'm observing is the more reserved kids, the more, antisocial kids, in their mind, it's like, well, I can connect to anyone in the world, so it's better that I stay in this little box. But then the challenge with that is what's happening is they're not growing themselves by being exposed to different experiences, yeah, because they feel safe in this little bubble of being in their room and then being able to talk to anyone in the world. And that has two facets, like it's got positives and negatives to it, right? You know, some people will go, oh, I'm glad my son's at home doing this or my child is at home doing this because at least I know where they are. But then there's a lot of other skills that they're missing out on, which I think that brings in that challenge of like their anxiety and, you know, like what comes up for them. They feel like they're fitting in and belonging, but then as soon as they step out that door, they're not. So that's got to be managed a little bit better, I think, as well.
So what are you finding is the biggest challenge for the youth nowadays?
The biggest challenge, number one challenge I find is the bullying that they are going through. That's a massive challenge for them, and finding the right friendship circles. Most kids I see, that's their number one issue. It's like, I don't fit in, I'm going through this, I'm being teased about this. And there's layers that comes with that because these are issues that we've all gone through. I went through massive bullying, not fitting in. So it's not like a new problem per se, but the challenges of today are a little bit different. So number one would be the use of the ease of technology and social media, and everything's got a bit of yin and yang, right? Everything's got polarity views on it. Like there's the good and the bad that comes with it. But how that's really impacting our children today and what's a massive challenge for them. When I was younger, the bullying, for example, would stop after I went home and I would get that little bit of a break from it all. Whereas now, because they're online, it's 24/7. It's in their face constantly, yeah? Their friendship circles. Like I'll give you an example with a 14-year-old in a Snapchat group with a bunch of girls, and all of a sudden she sees that she's being left out of all their social events, but she's still in the chat, so she can see everything that's going on, she can see everything they're discussing, but she's left out of it. And so she spiraled down into depression. not being able to communicate with them, feeling left out, not feeling seen, not belonging, what's wrong with me? And so that brings up a whole bunch of other stuff about body image, about her personality, and she can see this 24/7, yeah? So there's no break from that. Whereas when I was younger, if my friends went out, I wouldn't know anything about it unless they told me. So it's not enough, it's in their face all the time now. That's a really massive challenge. And another thing with that as well, like when it comes to the online stuff, that's a massive challenge for them. It's like the way the algorithms work, the way they target them with the marketing, the way they target their insecurities. Again, it's something that's 24/7, yeah? Back in my days again, I had the magazines, but then I was able to put them away, right? So now it's like constantly in your face, in your face, in your face. And I think that's a massive challenge for them in a lot of ways. And also if we want to look at it from a psychological, like a neuro perspective, what's happening with the brain, with the scrolling, with the constant online stuff, like there's been a drop in children's literacy, numeracy, being able to read and write because they're constantly online getting their information. And when you are doing that, dopamine hits in the brain a lot differently and the other chemicals aren't released. Whereas if you pick up a book or you do that sort of activity, there's different chemicals that are being released in the brain as well, like not just the dopamine. But then that's addictive to just go for the dopamine hit, and everything else seems boring in comparison, right? That is a massive challenge I see with young people and having to teach them to retrain their brain.
What kind of support, what can we do, and what advice do you have on how we can support the youth through this?
Yes, this is not just for the parents, because I'm a parent as well, but it's for anybody that deals with children. And even if you don't have children in your life, like even out just being publicly, children are always watching us, right? And, we kind of tell them stay off technology, but then the adults have the issues with being on technology, right? Like we're doing the same thing. So we can't be telling children to do one thing and then we do something else. I think that's really, really important. But listening to children and working with them rather than having this autocratic kind of authoritative, I'm the adult, you've got to do as I say because I know best. And we've got to remember as adults, we're also only projecting from our experiences and our, perception and our beliefs and our own growth, I guess. So that could be quite limited. So, just going back to what kids really want is to belong, to be seen, to be heard. So work with that as an adult in their life, yeah? Give them the opportunity to work with them. Like I always just say, go in with a young person and collaborate with them. Ask them, hey, what do you want? What do you think of this? How does that make you feel? What do you think you could do better? Rather than just going in there going, right, you're too addicted to the iPad, I'm going to take that away from you. And, I'm going to kick you outside kind of thing. Like it's just a new way of thinking and asking them and working with them rather than assuming and, coming from your own projection.
Thank you so much for joining us today, Marilou.
Thank you.
If you would like to know more about supporting our children during challenging times or more about Marilou, you can visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. And after the break, we'll be back with another interesting guest and another great topic. Stay tuned. After the break, root cause and somatic therapist Nicole Healy will be talking about navigating grief of loving someone in addiction. Welcome back. Our second guest is root cause and somatic therapist Nicole Healy, and she will be talking about navigating grief of loving someone in addiction. Welcome, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
So talk to me a little bit about what is addiction and what is it to mean to navigate grief of someone who's still alive?
So addiction really is any behaviour that we have a craving for, that when we partake in that behaviour we find relief, and will continue to do it even though it has a negative or a heavy impact on other areas of our life. And it's important to note that addiction is in a spectrum. So at the lower end of the scale will be things like scrolling on your phone, maybe working too many hours, those lower impact type of behaviours. And the other end of the scale is things like drugs, alcohol, gambling, porn, that will have a heavier impact on your life. And those are the addictions that generally have a stigma attached to them, which quite often can keep families, loved ones, even the person in addiction hiding that behaviour away. Now, understanding addiction for me meant that I understood myself more and realised that I had carried an addiction to food for most of my life. And this began when I was around 4 and my father suddenly passed away. And everybody came, as they do, and they brought lots of food and lots of sometimes sort of food. And I had been spending my life trying to recreate the love and the support that I received through the food. So as a 4-year-old, I just knew that I wanted to feel that support again, and I have lived that. So whenever I have felt angry, anxious, hurt, I have turned to food to soothe myself. And understanding that has meant that I can show myself compassion, and then that compassion has also been able to extend towards my partner with his addiction as well. So hopefully when people understand that, they can be more compassionate towards themselves and their loved one. And navigating the grief really is having this person that you love start to maybe change in behaviour, maybe feel more distant, maybe you're not really included in what's going on in their life anymore, maybe they're not involved in family events, maybe they just feel like even though they're sitting near you, they're a million miles away. And the way that we can feel about that is very similar to grieving someone who maybe has passed, where we will feel sad, maybe anxious, maybe confused, and that can bring on the despair of not knowing how to support them and what to do, and usually trying to navigate it on our own because we maybe feel there's too much of a stigma to reach out, and that can be a really heavy place to find yourself in.
And you did mention stigma just now. What does that mean? I mean, is there still a very big stigma when it comes to admitting that, oh, you know what, I'm struggling a little bit as well. I'm trying to navigate these feelings. How do I do that?
I think the stigma firstly comes with addiction and the judgment that we may feel, and it might be there, it might not, but we do see it in a lot in society where there is judgment or people think addiction is a choice, and families maybe feel that it's a failure on their part, especially if it's their child. So they maybe don't want to reach out. So that adds to the grief as well, that you're navigating it alone. But understanding that it's not a choice. If you think about my story, that 4-year-old didn't choose to use food as a way to soothe herself. Someone who maybe finds themselves in drug addiction won't choose drug to be the thing that soothes them. It's just the thing that works. So hopefully understanding that, you can see addiction a bit differently and maybe feel more willing or more safe to reach out to loved ones. So if you think back to the story of me as a 4-year-old using food, a 4-year-old doesn't consciously choose to use food as a way to soothe herself. It is just something that was there that brought relief, that has continued to soothe me throughout my life. And I'm really grateful for it, because I think, how would I have navigated so many challenging situations without that there is a support? Now, quite often for families too, the stigma that is attached to addiction will lead them to navigating in silence, and maybe that can lead to other things like feeling depressed, feeling isolated, feeling heartbroken, disengaging from life because they feel like they're almost running on empty, just trying to get through all the chaos and all the events that comes with loving someone in addiction. And I think it's really important to give yourself some grace with that and understand it's not a situation you chose to be in. Your loved one didn't choose it either, but really important for us loved ones to go, well, I didn't choose to be here. I'm going to give myself some grace with this, and maybe try to start to think about, what can I do that is going to help me, even in little ways. That can be something that you maybe enjoyed doing before you started to feel lost. It might be something new you might want to try that feels it can bring you some comfort, or it feels safe.
Do you have any advice for our viewers? Anyone who might be navigating this kind of grief, what can they do? What next steps can they take?
I think the first step is to be really aware of how you are actually feeling, maybe check in. And if you are noticing that you're maybe not coping and feeling like you're engaging in life maybe you feel like you're just surviving rather than thriving, to first thing, think about getting some professional support. There is lots of great people out there that can support you. I think also too, to give yourself some kindness, to understand this is a really challenging situation, and I know it's hard to reach out, but find some safe spaces, whether that's loved ones that when you do talk to them, you feel heard and valued, because the last thing that we need is judgment. We are already living a life where we do already feel a lot of that, and that's not very helpful. So just be really kind to self, get that professional support, and hopefully things can start to turn around for you.
Thank you so much for joining us, Nicole.
Thank you for having me.
If you'd like to know more about navigating grief of loving someone with an addiction, or about Nicole, you can check out her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au, and we'll be back after a short break with another interesting guest and great topic.
Stay tuned. After the break, psychotherapist specialising in hypnotherapy Julie Makin will be talking about, are you in control of your anger, or is it controlling you? Welcome back. Our last guest is Julie Makin, a psychotherapist specialising in hypnotherapy, and we will be discussing an important question. Are you in control of your anger, or is it controlling you? Welcome, Julie.
Hi, thank you.
So tell us, how does someone know if they're in control of their anger or not?
Okay, well, firstly, I would say that there is no control with anger. So what happens when we get angry is our prefrontal cortex actually just switches off. We go into that fight-flight scenario, and we have no logic, we have no impulse control anymore. So really, I would say that if you're experiencing anger, you're actually not in control. And the way I look at anger is a subsidiary of fear. So what I would ask you next is, what is it that you fear? What is at your base of what it is that you actually fear? What is it that you're avoiding asking yourself?
Okay, so how does anger connect with fear and a deeper belief about yourself?
Okay, so the way it actually works, when we go to the doctor, okay, generally we might have a rash or a physical wound on us, or we're feeling sick or something like that, and we go to the doctor. But when we have something like an internal wound, it gets touched, and then we respond from that pain and that hurt. Therefore, the anger comes up. So when I'm not feeling good enough, I'm feeling really hurt and I've got pain, that is going on. And therefore then I am responding with that anger, and I'm putting blame onto that other person. I felt like my words weren't important to this other person. I felt like my words weren't important. And if my words aren't important, then I'm not important. And if I'm not important, I'm not good enough. This is my base belief. So when my base belief of I'm not good enough gets touched like a wound inside. And when I worked it out, okay, so it really has to do with my base belief about how I feel about myself, that I am not good enough. I know that that is what I need to work on. The I'm not good enough. I don't matter.
Do you have advice for our viewers on changing those beliefs they might have about themselves?
Okay, so just a few practical tips. Firstly, if you're starting to feel that anger coming on, I invite you to scrunch your left fist. Make a left fist. Okay, you might also like to try, pushing your tongue up against the roof of your mouth. Perhaps if you're having a discussion with someone else, sitting down at a table and having a discussion, because that also helps when we're seated. But if you really feel that that anger is getting over and above what you're able to contain in that moment, perhaps just say to the other person, look, it's getting a little bit too much for me right now. I just need to take a moment, so I'm going to leave and maybe we can come back and discuss this, you know, when I feel more balanced, more level. I would say that the first step is simply recognizing it, having an awareness. To me, this is all part of body intelligence, what I've been studying for years. And just coming back to being what is right for you. Start looking at what is right for you. So when you start responding, you know, in the anger, have an awareness. Stop, if you can stop and just recognize what's going on in the body. And, you know, start asking yourself, is this right for me? What is it that I truly fear? What's going on here? And once you start pinpointing that, then maybe you can start dealing with it. You can have acceptance over it. Maybe your second step might actually be then seeking professional advice from a therapist, a professional therapist, and once again looking at the different modalities, because not every modality is right for a particular person. But you know what, you don't have to go and talk about your feelings and how, you know, you don't have to get long-winded about the here and now, because what I believe is that the here and now is surface talk. We want to get right down to the root cause so that you no longer have that anger that's coming up. What I would say in the future is for people who perhaps experience anger, there's an emotion that's coming up there with it. But when we're assertive, when we're saying what it is that we need, then we're stating it flatly, there's no emotion attached, and we are able to get our point across without the emotion. But the anger holds the emotion. So assertiveness is where we want to be. It's a place of safety within the body. You're actually probably getting your message across to the other person a lot better than what you would if it's in anger, because when you're in anger and you're yelling and getting upset with the other person, they're probably, you know, going into fight flight where their, you know, prefrontal cortex is turned off and they're in the emotional state and, you know, they're scared, they're worried, so they're not going to take on what it is that you have to say. So it's so much better for you and so much better for the receiver to, you know, for you to deliver your message assertively, not from an angry place.
Wow, that's fascinating. Thank you, Julie.
Yeah, no worries.
If you would like to know more about controlling your anger and Julie Makin, please visit her webpage on our website, healthwellbeingandlifestyle.com.au. That's all we have time for tonight. Until next week, goodbye.
If you'd like to know more about our show, please like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram and subscribe to our YouTube channel.